Hello, welcome. Welcome. This is the global community for adults who are healing CPTSD from childhood trauma, repeated relational trauma that began in childhood. This community is a place where for almost 11 years now, next week it will be 11 years, we come together and we meet up with one another once a week here on YouTube. And we check in with one another. We share what's been working in our healing journey and what has not been working in our healing journey. So, we started several years ago going through a book by Melody Beatty called The Language of Letting Go. And then we did some other readings on different books. And this weekly YouTube sort of connecting point meetup, it's been an anchor. It's been an anchor in my week for over a decade. Well, for 11 years next week. So thank you to each of you for being in my life. Thank you for allowing me to be in yours. And for those of you who have been here pretty much since the beginning, I just want to warmly acknowledge you and your commitment to your own healing journey and your deep and profound love and respect and warmth toward this community. It is really so humbling and so beautiful. And so right now, so we did start several years ago going through one book, and we've gone through a couple of books together now. And then for a while, we're doing meditations, affirmations, healing strategies with Dr. Ariel Schwartz and Lisa A. Romano, and with a couple of different books from Young Pueblo, and meditations written by Morgan Harper Nichols, and then photography that was taken by me, and poems and meditations that were written by me. And here we are, fast forward to present day. We are on week 10 of going through Pete Walker's most recent book titled Holistically Treating Complex PTSD, a 6-dimensional approach. So thank you to each of you who have shared how this book has been meaningful for you and transformational for you. So yeah, it's really been wonderful to spend some time together and just talk about the highlights of what's working for us in this book and some of the things that have stuck out to me in my own healing journey. Many of you know my private practice is with its only trauma therapists, like psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, counselors, marriage and family therapists, etc. And a couple of them have shared that this book in particular has helped them with their own private practices and their own group practice. Like, this book has helped them, and it's only really, I think, been out for the last month, or actually I think it was released 3 months ago. Time flies. Wow, how has it been 3 months? But yeah, so thank you for spending time with me as we talk about Pete Walker's most recent book. And thank you for sharing in the chat box how you're doing, and just supporting one another so warmly and kindly. And before we get started and before we jump in, if you are popping in and you haven't been here the last couple of weeks, we are on the portion of the book where we're talking about the cathartic nature of anger. And getting in touch with our anger can be really, really, really tricky, especially those of us whose trauma began in early childhood and we were raised in environments that were quite violent, and we were witness to domestic violence and other types of situations. So please be gentle, and please be kind with yourself as you listen to the last few weeks talking about the cathartic nature of anger and accessing our anger. And it really is just it's a slow and gentle process that we must have a lot of patience with ourselves, patience and kindness and warmth and compassion toward ourselves in our healing journey, particularly if we are ever wanting to learn how to show up in our relationships in ways that work, in ways that we're proud of. Whether it's a relationship with our neighbors, friends, boss, coworkers, adult children, loved ones, romantic partner, whomever it may be, if we want to show up in those relationships in ways that work for everyone involved, in ways that we are proud of, and we're not like, oh gosh, I can't believe I did that. What Pete is talking about in these last few weeks, and what we're going to be covering in the next 2 to 3 weeks as well, I believe it is the key. I believe it is one of the cornerstones. I didn't have access to a full range of my emotions, and they were living inside of me, and they would come out without my permission. Like anger out of nowhere would just fly out of my mouth. I would act in weird ways. It didn't make any sense. But now reading this book and also his previous book on the Tao of Fully Feeling, I believe that grief and anger are two sides of grief and gratitude are two sides of the same coin, and anger is involved in both of them. It sounds odd and strange for anger to be a part of grief and gratitude, but in order for me to be having access to my gratitude for little things in life, like filtered water or climate control or a comfortable pair of shoes or a bird on my patio, I can't just only access those things and not access anger or rage or pain or bitterness or resentment or just a full range of my emotions. So the last few weeks in particular have been very transformational for me. And last week, thank you all so much for being so kind as I was sharing with you my grief and just the anger that was involved with my grief and the tricky nature of it all. So before we dive in and into this portion of Pete Walker's book, I just want to pause and say hello to everyone who's here. I see so many of you. Oh my goodness. Hello to you, Jeffrey Sherman. Hello, Karen. Hello, Jen. Hello, Brave Vanessa. Hello, Craig. Hello, Framily. Hello to you, Marzui. Hey, Ninja Taco. So good to see you, Recovery Buddy. Hello, Kitty. Hello, hello. Hello, Kate. Hello to you, Greg. Am I meeting you for the very first time? I think we have 3 Gregs in our community, but I believe I've already said hello to you previously and warmly welcomed you. But if I have not, this is me warmly welcoming you to our community, Greg. We're so glad that you're here. Hello to you, Rose. Long time no see. Rose says, haven't been here in a while. Didn't know we're doing book reviews now. Oh, it's not a book review. No, we're still doing healing from complex trauma. That's what we do. We're still healing CPTSD. We're just looking to the masters who are actually, been healing their own CPTSD for like 4 decades. And we're doing what they're doing and talking about them. John Harvey, how are you? Special thank you to John Harvey and Ninja Taco for being our Blue Wrench crew, our moderators. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Hello to you, Nadine. So good to see you. Hello, Lisa Marie. Hello, Natalia. Hello to anyone else that I didn't get an opportunity to greet by name. I'm so glad. So glad to see you. Oh, Greg says, I show up every once in a while. Thanks for welcoming me again. You're so, so, so welcome. We're glad to have you here always. Thank you. Yeah, if I didn't warmly welcome you by name, it was unintentional. And I warmly welcome you now with my hand on my heart. So, yeah, Marzui. Marzui says, I think I need to read the Tao of Fully Feeling again. I know so much of that book is in this book that I feel like I'm getting like a good refresher. Like the high points are mentioned. And this book is so accessible. And the table of contents in this particular book that we're going through right now, the book that you see on the screen, the table of contents in this book is by far the most comprehensive, helpful, supportive, easily navigatable, and just 5 stars, mwah, chef's kiss for this table of contents. It makes Pete Walker's work so accessible so that anyone who glances at the cover and goes, oh, complex PTSD, oh, I've heard of that, or oh, yes, ugh, I have that, ugh. You know, the moment they open it up and the moment they go to the table of contents, I'm telling you, this table of contents spans, let's see, I think 10 pages, 9 pages. The table of contents spans 9 pages. Yes, 9 pages. And it really creates such a beautiful flow for like what it is that you're looking for. Yeah, just the table of contents is 9 pages. It's really just so well done. I mean, obviously Pete Walker's brilliant and everything he does is brilliant. And I'm a huge fangirl, and he's my fantasy uncle, Uncle Pete. But like seriously, mad props and deep respect, deep bow for just the artwork that is the table of contents, because it really, I can literally go to the table of contents and scan and go, oh yeah, that's where I was at. Got it. Like my book dropped, for instance, because I was like trying to clean my desk, which is hilarious. But yeah, and I was like, oh dang it, what page was I on? And I was easily able to go, oh yeah, I'm right here. Like we're going to be on, you know, we're going to be covering several pages tonight. And we're starting on page 286. So, hello to you, Angie. Warm welcome to you. We're so glad you're here. Angie says, how is anyone with CPTSD supposed to be able to pay attention long enough to even get through the table of contents? That's fair. Well, in my experience in doing this work for 11 years, anyone living with CPTSD, truly, like, they find a way. They want to heal. They're here every week. They're showing up for themselves on a daily basis between bouts of anxiety and depressive, and the anxious presentation of CPTSD and the depressive presentation of CPTSD and the inner critic and the emotional flashbacks. And they're just like, for fuck's sake, I need some help. Give me some help. And when they glance at 9 pages, they can choose where they want to start. So yeah. But yeah, that's fair. 9 pages is a lot, but in my experience, this community is by far the bravest, most resilient, and courageous, and most resourceful community and collective of human beings that I've ever had the privilege of sitting with and walking beside. So without further delay, we are going to begin on page 286, where we will continue on the topic of angering. And then next week, we're talking about verbal ventilation. And we're going to go into some peer-reviewed research and some theoretical glances. And there will be some vignettes. And but in the meantime, please, please, please continue to share in the chat box anything that comes up for you. anything that stands out to you, so that those who come and listen to the replays will be able to see what you put in the chat box that was helpful and supportive for your unique healing journey, so that maybe they can look into that and maybe it will be helpful for them. So, angering work diminishes repetition compulsion. And I know that repetition compulsion and that self-fulfilling prophecy of, I knew I was unlovable, I knew there was something wrong with me, I knew I was defective, I knew I would be abandoned, I knew that I would be betrayed. That toxic shame spiral that so many of us fall into and get sucked into and live in a lot of the time and swim through on an every other day or so basis, it can really, really, really be frustrating and demoralizing. This repetition compulsion, the self-fulfilling prophecy of just all of the things that just the inner critic having its way with us, right? So what Pete Walker is positing here in this particular portion of the book is talking all about how if we are able to sit with and glance at the possibility of what it might look like to access our anger and be open to being open to accessing our anger in therapeutic ways that don't harm ourselves and others, we will literally cease to fall into toxic shame spirals and participate in the repetition compulsion and the self-fulfilling prophecy, and we will be able to have a full access to full range of our emotions so that we can feel better and show up in relationship differently and in ways that we're proud of. So there's a quote here from Scott Peck from his book, The Road Less Traveled, and that is what Pete Walker begins this portion of the chapter with. And he says, this is a quote from Scott Peck: "Anger is an emotion bred into us by countless generations of evolution in order that our survival may be encouraged. Without our anger, we would indeed be continually stepped on until we were totally squashed and exterminated." End quote. And that is so powerful, because so many of us have been shamed for expressing anger, and to see that it is so necessary for our survival, and how Pete is going to share with us tonight about how it really does help us to embody that self-advocacy that we have so needed for so long. Anger is like a superhighway towards being able to advocate for ourselves and establish and maintain the healthy boundaries that we need, so that others will not continue to use us as a doormat, and we're able to cultivate those safe enough relationships where we feel deeply connected with other humans, and the painful isolation of healing CPTSD starts to dissipate just a bit so that it becomes tolerable. So I'm very hopeful and encouraged by that. So Pete says, when therapists aid survivors to resuscitate our instinctual anger about parental maltreatment, they simultaneously begin deconstructing the subconscious acceptance of others' reenactments of their parents' traumatizing behavior. A meek, visibly fearful client of mine suffered devastating sexual seductions from trusted male figures on 3 occasions in her adult life. And over time, we trace these back to a childhood betrayal by a trusted uncle, the only seemingly kind caretaker of her childhood. She was emotionally abandoned by her parents, and he preyed upon her loneliness. He gradually took appropriate physical affection, one increment at a time, into contact that became increasingly sexual. My client felt helpless with her uncle because her ability to say no was parentally extinguished by the time she was in preschool. The ability to say no is the backbone of our instinct of self-protectiveness, and without that, she was unable to protest his sexual violations. On subsequent occasions in her adult life, a minister, a doctor, and a therapist exploited her via reenactment of this original scenario. She was immediately triggered into an emotional flashback all 3 times. She dissociated so much that she did not protest their exploitative betrayals. She could only react to these situations later by turning her anger inward and blaming and shaming herself for not stopping it. During our work together, my gentle and repetitive encouragement enabled her to gradually get angry about all of those betrayals. My elicitation of her anger was very similar to the process I describe in the Chapter 4 vignette that we talked about a few weeks back. About 6 months after a great deal of angering in sessions at all her past perpetrators, she came in glowing with pride. She welled up with tears of joy and relief as she described her success in stopping an office predator who was in the early stages of a parallel seduction. This was the stage of seemingly friendly touching. Unwanted pat on the back gradually escalated into a hand resting on her shoulder. And she told me, well, typically in the past, this was soon followed by subtle sexual innuendo and lingering touches on my hand and then my forearm. I was never, in the past, able to protest these inappropriate advances. But this time, I suddenly found myself sternly saying, in the presence of another worker no less, "Please don't touch me. I don't like it when you touch me, and I don't want you to touch me anymore." I am so thrilled and I am in awe of myself. End quote. For many weeks after, she delighted in starting each session with an update that the foiled seduction was dead in the water and her would-be predator avoided her like the plague. And I am just celebrating that. I don't know how many of you have been in situations like that, but I definitely have, and I'm celebrating her as well. So Pete shifts this from a vignette into talking about another topic within the context of anger and how anger restores our innate instinctual self-protectiveness. I love this. He starts with a quote by Rainer Maria Rilke, and the quote says, "If only we would let ourselves be dominated as things do by some intense storm, we would become strong too." End quote. And then it goes on, "With zigzag lightning darting from the ends of my feet, I step. With zigzag lightning streaming out from my knees, I step. With zigzag lightning streaming from the tip of my tongue, I speak. Black obsidian and zigzag lightning streams out from me in 4 ways. Where they strike the earth, bad things, bad talk does not like it." And that is a quote from a Navajo prayer. Pete says, "Many of my clients do not achieve any substantial gains in real-world assertiveness until they do anger release work in their therapy sessions. In my own life, anger work has helped me many times to break through my fear and take the risks essential to my ongoing development and evolution. An especially powerful experience helped me overcome my terror of public speaking, jumping out of an airplane, intervening in a mugging, and patrolling ambush country in the Korean DMZ were nowhere near as fearsome as lecturing was for me. Unlike the former, the latter literally scared the shit out of me. For years, I could not get up in front of an audience without 3 trips to the bathroom in the hour before. many attempts to use positive self-talk and self-hypnosis and meditation still left me overcome by this affliction. My terror at the lectern did not begin to abate until I applied anger work to this problem. I began by fully feeling and exploring my fear. I was shocked to discover barely conscious fantasies of audience members verbally attacking me in the same ways that my parents had. Behind these fantasies were fearful images of my parents suddenly appearing in the audience to knock me off my high horse. It shook me that my fear of my parents, who I had no contact with for 13 years, was by far my greatest dread. How could I still be terrified of them? They were so enfeebled. I could effortlessly repel any attack by them. And then I remembered that I had seen 2 different men, the size of professional football players, quaking in their boots around their frail, dying, but still verbally abusive mothers in the hospice where I volunteered. Grounded in real possibility or not, these fears were powerfully real in my body, and the bottom line source of my painful somatic response to lecturing. To counter these fears, I experimented with my discovery that my fear often spontaneously dissipated whenever I felt angry. In the hour before my lectures began, I imaginatively role-played defending myself against anyone who might attack me while I was talking. My first experiments with this were quite basic, and when my fear produced images of my parents smacking me in the face because they didn't like what I was saying, which was a reoccurring occurrence in childhood, I summoned up my anger and I shadowboxed them off the stage. In the process, I reminded my inner child of my promise that no one would ever be allowed to hit him again without me physically resisting them. Angry role plays of fighting off my parents eventually evolved into a more realistic plan for defending myself against frightening outcomes that were more possible. Alongside the fear of being hit, lived the fear of being verbally attacked and humiliated while I lectured. That was bound to happen sooner or later. And what in the world would I do in that terrifying moment? Well, as I focused on this fear, I heard the inner echoings of my parents' belittling sarcasm, and I decided to let myself silently shout back angrily at them. During this angering, it suddenly dawned on me, in a uniquely illuminating and empowering way, that I had the right to insist on respect any and every time I was giving a lecture. It was my lecture. I was the person in charge. I had the right to determine who could be in the audience. I had the power to tell anyone to leave who became unreasonably argumentative, disruptive, or abusive. In fact, I could insist on it in a calm and reasonable voice. I could offer individuals their money back should they protest that they had paid and had the right to remain. And if they continued to make a fuss and refused to leave, I could declare a 15-minute intermission to avoid the discomfort of dealing with them in front, my page stuck together, in front of the audience. I could then deal with the disruption more privately, and I could even call for police assistance if they refused to leave. A year of using various versions of this process gradually reduced my fear of public speaking to the point that I no longer have anxiety attacks before my lectures. Now, I find many years later that I have been so successful at establishing a sense of safety around teaching that I'm almost fearless about public speaking. Ironically, this is so much the case that I occasionally miss the adrenaline release of those old anxiety attacks, which I was sometimes able to sublimate into energizing my talks. If therapists do not help survivors to reclaim their healthy anger and self-protectiveness, we may remain paralyzed by past fears that no longer threaten us. Angering evokes the courage necessary to liberate us, to liberate our full self-expression. It helps remind us that the greatest courage is action in the face of fear. Such anger can remove the gag of emotional flashbacks. It can defeat the inner critic's tactic of flashing pictorial specters of childhood bullies and smashing them down for speaking out. Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers is an excellent book offering practical encouragement on how to remain resolved in the face of fear. But when we, survivors, become proficient at angering with safe and harmless techniques, we are less likely to become mute in social situations. We can also deconstruct the ailment of being a walking landmine of anger. Angering safely releases and resolves the underlying transference rage that causes life-spoiling moods and behaviors. I love sharing with you all about all of the ways that Pete has been able to heal his CPTSD. It really speaks to not only his ability to walk his talk, obviously, but the fact that he's dedicated his entire life to sharing personal vignettes and professional vignettes with those of us who just want to heal. I find it tremendously encouraging and validating and supportive. So this next section on angering talks about temporarily splitting into anger and how it is able to help us in our trauma recovery journey. Pete says, and we're at the bottom of page 290 for those of you who follow along, Pete says, at certain points in emotional recovery, we survivors feel rage toward our parents. When denial and minimization sufficiently crumble, we survivors commonly split off from an unambivalent, idealized love of our parents into temporary feelings of animosity. This split, which some therapists liken to a divorce, helps survivors to recover from constraining childhood conditioning that is still squelching their full self-expression. And then there's a note here about a book called Getting Divorced from Mother and Dad, and it's written by Bob Hoffman, and Pete Walker recommends it. For those of you who are note takers, the author is Bob Hoffman, and the title of the book is Getting Divorced from Mother and Dad. Moving on, Pete says, unless therapists aid us, we survivors, to challenge the absolute loyalty that our parents demand, we may never see how impaired we are by accepting their internalized deadly judgmentalism. Sometimes we survivors can be gently nudged to temporarily reduce or have no contact at all with traumatizing parents who indoctrinated us into self-hate and toxic shame. This is especially crucial in cases where parents still habitually negative notice and disapprove. When survivors give ourselves extended periods of distance from our parents verbally and physically, we can more easily break our habituation to self-deprecation. We become freer to replace it with the habit of self-support. Splitting off into anger leaves us freer to work through our accumulated rage. It protects our unfolding self-expressiveness from any parental critiques, and it makes us less inhibited in fighting off the noxious introjects. Now, introjects are the inner critic that takes on the embodiment or the voice of our parent. That's an introject. I have introjects of my mother and I have introjects of my father. Moving on, we're on page 291, toward the bottom. In the work of protecting ourselves from stultifying parental influences, we often experience a considerable amount of ambivalating between loving and hating. We may have numerous oscillations between the pole of We may have numerous oscillations between the pole of re-embracing denial and unambivalent love and the pole of feeling consumed by reserves of rage that have not yet been sufficiently diminished by the witnessing and validation needed. As grieving progresses, splitting becomes less dramatic, and some of us may come to feel authentically safe with our parents without automatically surrendering to being controlled by them. This is, of course, if the parents have mellowed into no longer being abusive. However, if our parents were especially mean and withholding, they may not be able to warm up. We may not be able to warm up to them, even if we work through all of the bulk of our anger toward them. And this is generally always the case if the parents are still abusive and neglectful. Some parents were and or are so toxic that they can never be trusted. Being around them will always trigger us into destabilizing flashbacks. And in such cases, we are often shocked to discover that there was never any real substance to the love we thought that we had from our parents. Therapists may need to periodically remind survivors that it is not humanly possible to emotionally love someone who is continuously hurtful. Fear so dominates the psyche of a regularly abused person that they cannot manifest genuine loving feelings around them. In such situations, therapists can gently and patiently encourage clients to ongoingly diminish or completely end parental contact. This type of splitting is truly like a healthy divorce. In the same way that some divorces rescue a spouse from an abusive marriage, splitting from still perpetrating parents sometimes provides survivors with the first extended experience of safety and self-esteem in their lives. For further support in helping survivors free themselves from still toxic parents, therapists can advise clients to participate in this excellent free online support group, reddit.com subreddit raised by narcissists. And that is all we have for this week. So let me put my book down and come see how you all are doing. Yes, Pete Walker also helped me understand that emotional neglect causes trauma. Yeah, it's like oftentimes we don't get the impact of implicit abuse. Neglect is, for all intents and purposes, abuse. It's almost like lying to someone outright is the same as lying by omission. Abusing a child, whether it's through physical abuse or other forms of abuse or neglect, is still abuse, right? So it's so very important that we honor and respect and hold space for and be very gentle with all forms of abuse that we have experienced. There are so many beautiful meditations and poems and writings and books and videos and podcasts all about the different forms of abuse and the way that they show up, the way that they manifest themselves, right? So I just really want to, I want to hold this space and just let you know that if you are dealing with family of origin dysfunction, childhood emotional neglect, especially, childhood physical neglect, of course, is damaging. Childhood emotional neglect is harder to put our finger on, but it really truly damages us deep down to the soul of our being. And the family of origin dysfunction and public humiliation that goes along with it, and the enmeshment where we're expected to be loyal to them regardless of their dysfunction, it's so very damaging. Establishing and maintaining a healthy amount of contact or a minimal amount of contact is so important for family of origin dysfunction. And when we're talking about neglect, it's really important that we hold very gentle, patient, and kind space for ourselves, and to go very slowly, particularly if our neglect began in infancy. We will know if our neglect began in infancy if we really struggle with human connection, and if we have a profound desire to connect with other humans, but we're also terrified of it. So please go gently. My teacher, Marshall, he always says, go gently. It's really important that we go slowly. And when we're talking about family of origin dysfunction, neglect, abuse, exploitation, it is so important that we pause and that we go as slowly as we are able to go while we are healing, because the slower we go, the faster we heal. That's another ism that I learned from him. I think it was some quote that he quoted from a different teacher, but the slower we go, the faster we heal. Or another is in complex trauma recovery, slow is fast, small is big. So this can be really heavy, you all. This is brave work. This is deep work. This is hard work. And let me get my glasses. I'm missing so much in the chat box. My chat box was frozen and now it's moving really fast. Brave Vanessa says, small is big, ? Yes, so the small the small things we do for ourselves in our healing journey, like small acts of self-care, like making sure that we hydrate, making sure that we eat food that nourishes our body, doing something very gentle, like doing gentle stretches on a daily basis, or showing up for ourselves in the ways that we do consistently and reliably on a daily basis, even if it's only for 60 seconds or 2 to 3 minutes at a time. It's very, very, very important. The slower we go, the faster we heal. Slow is fast, small is big. The smaller the increments of what it is that we're doing for ourselves, the bigger the healing gains. So a small thing that we can do for ourselves that really brings us a lot of huge progress in our healing journey, where we're actually able to feel it, is when we decide that we're going to pause every single day for just a few minutes a day to connect with others who are on a similar path. And we just allow ourselves to make a calculated risk and connect with others. Others who are not going to minimize and invalidate us. Others who are not going to gaslight us. Others who are not going to deny our reality. Others who are not going to question our version of what's happened in our lives. It's really important that we find our people. And you all, you are my people. You are my family. You are my friendly family of choice. It's very important that we do the small things consistently and reliably. If it's only one thing, just choose one. Just choose one thing, right? It's like tomorrow I'm going to make sure that I hydrate. 1 ounce for every pound of my body weight. However many ounces my body weight is, I'm going to drink that many ounces of water throughout the day. I'm going to do the best I can. If I make it, great. If I don't, that's okay. Or I notice that when I take a vitamin C vitamin, I feel better and I don't get a scratchy throat. Then take that vitamin C. Oh, Brave Vanessa says, does self-care count? Absolutely, self-care counts. It's so important. Yes, Merzui says, perhaps one of our Mondays we should just meet for tea. Yes, absolutely. You know what? That's such a great idea, Merzui. We have a community over on Circle, and on Wednesdays it's Coffee with Jen. Here's a link to the community. And then daily, 2 calls a day every day, Monday through Friday, we meet at 12 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Eastern, and we do like what we do here. We connect with one another twice a day, every day. Yes, Skylight, so good to see you. Slower I go, the faster I heal. We'll post that on my bathroom wall. Yes. Yes, I'm glad that works for you. I learned it from Marshall Bircher. He has a website called freetheself.com. That's where I learned it. That's the person I learned it from. I think he also has a website called healcodependency.com, or maybe it's healyourcodependency.com. Yeah, John Harvey says, I like to treat myself with jelly beans, the ones with different flavors like popcorn. Yum! Like the Jelly Bellies. Yes, Ninja Taco says jelly beans are yummy. They are yummy. They are. Oh, you all are my favorite. Thank you all so much. Thank you for being here. Next week, we are going to... Jeffrey Sherman says, Jen and Kitty, I feel you. I am sending you lots of love. I truly understand. Oh, I missed it. Hello, Lisa. Oh, it's moving so fast. For some reason, it keeps going so fast. Oh, I have a tattoo. Not all over my whole arm or leg, but I do have a tattoo. Okay, so next week we are going to begin our topic of verbal ventilation, the golden path. Excuse me. Pete says, verbal ventilation, the golden path to intimacy. And this is not necessarily speaking about sexual intimacy. It's speaking about the ability to connect in ways that work and that feel safe and supportive. So we'll begin next week on the bottom of page 292, and we will talk all about verbal ventilation and the therapeutic nature of it. And we will go as far as we possibly can, all the way to page 304. So almost 10 pages. It'll be a little bit long. So grateful that you did join, Lisa. So grateful you found us. Oh, thank you, brave Vanessa. Thank you. Great job for you being here. Great job, you. I'm sending you hugs, Jen, and you, Jeffrey Sherman, and each and every one of you. So if I see you over in our community, I look forward to that. And if not, that's okay. I'll be back here next Monday and every Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Hugs to you, Lisa Marie. Hugs to you, Jeffrey Sherman. Yes, it'll be the old man yells at clouds. Verbal ventilation. Absolutely. So until I see you again, please be extra kind and patient and gentle with yourselves, as Jeffrey would say, because you are worth it. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Good night, everyone.